Hi, welcome to the 11th video in this series, looking at the solo role player collected archives. So this one, now, Rats in the Basement is one of the chapters of From Frustration to Freedom, which is the sort of a 30-day course set up by Kenny Norris, available from Cabbage Games on DriveThru. And it's really, really good. And this article in the collected archives predates the chapter in the book, and it's kind of a little bit more basic and a little bit rougher, but it's still a really, really good exercise. And there's only one problem I have with it, which I'll tell you about when I get there. So the idea of the rats in the basement, which always reminds me of the original Morrowind. Actually, no, Morrowind 3, Elder Scrolls 3, Morrowind. One of the fighters guilds, the first tasks there was to kill rats in the basement. So the idea is that you've got a nice confined space, which they call the basement, but it could be any kind of self-contained location. So your game's not going to spin out of control and you go completely off course. Um, and the idea, the setting will define a lot of it. If it's a modern day game, it could well be a setting. It could be a flat or an apartment or something. But in a fancy game, it could be a cave, a dungeon, a tower, or a basement. Uh, the setting really defines everything. It could be a post-nuclear scrap heap, which you're scavenging for resources. The setting gives you the whole kind of style of it. The basement is a really nice confined playing area, which is easy to imagine and of you know, you're not going to completely kind of off the rails and off piste with it. The rats are any simple foe. In a combaty type game, they're going to be something easily defeated. Uh, they are uh, they're a small challenge which your character should be able to deal with. They could be, I think it's Kenny's example. They could be innocents that need rescuing from a burning building. They could be literal rats. They could be kobolds or goblins or something. Anything that's relatively easy to defeat. Now, the shopkeeper is the quest giver. In the classic rats in the basement adventure, the shopkeeper pays you to deal with the rats in the basement. So the shopkeeper is any kind of quest giver, and the tools they are. It could be if you need weapons. It could be if you actually want literal rat traps. It could be you need a ladder to get to a burning building. It's you part of it is that when you're going to run this little adventure, you are going to have to interact with the NPCs. So the shopkeepers get as a quest giver, but also if you're going to get tools, where you're going to get them from. Is it going to going off to another shop to buy stuff? It's it's another kind of form of interaction. You've got to be describing, you got to imagine the locations in within the settings. That all these parts are really important elements of solo role playing and all role playing. You want to explore the setting, you want to experience the actual locations. um, Most role playing games have some kind of conflict, whether that is emotional, social, or you know, combat. But without some kind of challenge or conflict, there's you know, that element of the game disappears, and it can often turn into some kind of more journaling type thing. Um, you got the NPC interaction, and all of this is great stuff. It's a brilliant of of first adventure, first adventures in solo playing, and literally a first adventure. But we're coming up to my only real complaint in here, which if I was to hoik someone off the street and say I'm going to teach you the solo role playing, when they come down, when Kenny's saying here, brainstorm 5 to 20 different possible settings. I as a first steps in solo play, I think that's overkill. If you're an experienced solo player, as Kenny obviously is, then yeah, coming up with 5 to 20 might be feasible. I would struggle. I really would struggle if you sat me down and wanted me to come up with 20 settings. Um, uh, but then it carries on. 10 to 20 different types of basement. Well, I was probably struggling to find 4 at the beginning of this video. And I'd refreshed myself about the article before we even started, so I was prepared. And then you got the same thing. 10 to 20 different rats to infest your basement, and a method to rid the basement of the rats. But coming up with 10 to 20 or 5 to 10 different things, it, I think this could be because Kenny is trained on Mythic. And when you got things like the location crafter, the Mythic location crafter, if it works for you, it's brilliant. But it's all about building quite substantial random lists and then rolling on different ones of your lists at different times. And I can't get on with it because I can't spontaneously create those lists. Likewise, I could not complete this exercise. I probably could, but I would hate it by the end of it. It would feel like work, not not fun. Um, and it would probably take me the best part of a day to come up with 20 unique things for each of these. So it'd be a week to play a 15-minute scene, which that's it is not working for me. Whereas if you came up with, if you'd reduce those to 1 to 3, 1 to 3, 1 to 3, um, then I think most people could probably do it, and they would get the idea then of the fact that you can pull these ideas out of your own imagination, which is what we often ask people to do in solo play. You've got yes, no, and yes and no, but that sort of thing. Having to produce a couple of viable answers is really often enough. If you throw people a couple of prompt words, if they react to prompt words or icons or whatever your form of oracle, um, they can often come up with a couple of interpretations in that situation. So yeah, this bit, this brainstorming section, I struggle with. I think it's overkill and defeats the purpose. But this now I call this a Mad Lib. I don't know if there's another name for a sentence where you've got these variables in place. Um, Now I could understand if Kenny had reduced himself or constrained himself to 6 of everything. You could literally have a D6 settings and a D6 rats and a D6 basement, and you would have had a huge number of potential outcomes here, just to show how variable it could all be. Um, but I do like this idea of coming down, almost creating a little mission statement of in this setting, these rats are in this basement, and this shopkeeper needs you to do this to remove them before such and such, and you need X to do it. I like that, and that keeps you really, really on track. Something I do in a lot of my solo stuff is I put some key ideas on. I use little post-its, and I stick them right at the top of my notes. On every page of notes, I move the same post-it note there, and that keeps the key ideas um, you know, in the forefront. And then when I come up with something and I think, oh, what does that mean, or how am I going to use that? I, because that mission statement or that story arc or concept is right there, I can often connect it. If I struggle, I look to that central idea and say, right, how does that apply to this? And it kind of keeps the games very much on track. And I think having that kind of mission statement serves that same purpose. Well, yeah, he used the same words of keeping it on track. Um, and yeah, also this idea of defining when an adventure has ended, which I found with my early solo playing. What would happen was I would get so far into an adventure, and then say the rules would throw up what we call a plot twist, and it would be because of something else, and that would take me off at right angles, and then I get so far with that, and then a plot twist would change everything again, and I don't think I ever completed any you know fairly linear adventures at all because I was exploring these sandboxes, and every time I got close to finishing something, a plot twist would, or an interrupted scene, or something like that, would take me off in a different direction. So I quite like that idea of having a definition of when this adventure ends, and because this has a deadline in it, which is something I've never really used before, but having a deadline, if you um, don't get rid of the rats before the deadline, then that mission has still ended. The adventure has still ended. You failed. Now, you may have failed because you were doing something bigger, better, more important, but still, that shopkeeper has still got the rats in the basement because you didn't clear them. So, yeah, I like that idea. I think that's certainly worth keeping that idea alive. So, that's really of a little bit of that's it. The setup is more important than anything else. So when you get into playing it, um, Kenny says here, don't forget to use the core elements of solo role playing in your adventure. I don't think solo should be in that sentence because everything else here, NPC interactions, detailing the settings and the NPCs, skill use, combat, um, just that one last one there, the solo engine, that's the outlier. But everything else here would be, if that said GM rulings, um, then that would describe basically any tabletop RPG. Um, yeah, so I would say it's more important to remember all the core elements of role playing, not necessarily solo, because you can run on for a great length of time. If you've done all this prep and you know what's going to happen, and well, I mean, I don't mean what's going to happen as in the whole thing, but you know that the shopkeeper needs the rats cleared for this reason. Um, if you know all of that, um, you could actually clear those rats and probably not ask a single oracle question. If you've picked the setting and you've picked the location and you can already imagine those, they're not going to generate any questions. If you can imagine the rats and how the rats should typically behave, you may not ask any questions to do that. I think a great many people could actually play an entire um, Rats in the Basement as set out in this article and not use a solo engine. Um, I could be wrong, but I could easily see that happening. And then the powers, magic powers, superior powers, probably big weapons, anything, using the character features. You know, that's often what we play. We want to play these heroes that do these things because they can swing a big sword or they can cast magic or whatever. So yeah, I think the rats in the basement is a really good exercise. Um, Now, off the top of my head, I can't remember the chapter in Frustration to Freedom having this huge burden of effort in it. I might check it after the video, but yeah, I think that is the one weak part in this entire idea. Okay, so yeah, that's all my thoughts on this one. I think there's only two more videos after this, so that'll be 13 in the series. Okay, thank you for watching.